Uh-oh. Good day, good day, good day. And the reason I said uh-oh is because every time I start my little chat here online, the dogs in my neighborhood start barking. I believe it is a plot. They are against me. Anyway, welcome everyone to another moment with All for Success. Thank you so much for listening in this morning. I am hoping that everyone here understands that this is a Sussex friendly space. By that I mean, when I look at Harry and Meghan and the life they are trying to live and the children that they have had, I think of the world from the perspective of an adult parent, or rather, a parent of adult children. And therefore, I don't look in that space and see anything to be negative about or hateful about. Thus, join me here in this Sussex friendly space. Now, that being said, if you are also like me and the parent of adult children, go ahead, sit down, make yourself a cup of coffee before you get out there doing any errands or whatever it is you like to do on Sunday morning. Get yourself a moment to relax, a moment of peace, and I won't keep you long, I promise. And here's the reason why. Over the past week in our area, flowers are blooming, trees are blooming, all the things that I love to look at, but they make breathing difficult. All of those things make the sneezing starts to happen, the scratchy throat. Oh my goodness, I'm fighting that tooth and nail, taking everything I can. So I just want you all to bear with me here. I'll be a little slow. I hope my voice sounds as clear as possible. But I'm telling you, we are getting ready to head straight into allergy season. So if any of you suffer from that, feel free to join the fun. Oh my goodness. All right, so if you've got your coffee, that sounds exciting and you're ready to go, that's good too. That's a good thing. Now, if you're not doing coffee or you're not doing that kind of relaxation, then you instead might be wanting to get out and do some exercising. I hope that you can get out and that she wants to become a brand like Martha Stewart. Ahead of myself. I jumped ahead. Um, Stand by. We have technical issues. But yeah, if you're instead out exercising or stretching and getting yourself fit, go ahead, get your walk in or your bike ride or whatever type of exercise you do. At my age, folks, I have to remind you, everything hurts. But I have been trying to do a few more push-ups slowly here and there to strengthen my core. Everyone tells me, when you get older, you need to keep the muscles working, keep the muscle work. Okay, so join me in that. But here is the other exciting part of this season. Even though we're all out here hustling, avoiding the allergies, we're also trying to avoid all of the little bugs and mosquitoes and things that are also going to be chasing us, and spiders. Oh, yes, they're everywhere. I'm checking the cracks for ants. My goodness, I love spring, but these other things can make it really a challenge. Now, with the bugs, with the spiders, with the pollen, folks, as with Megan, as ever with Megan, right? It is time to plant. So, everyone who is into attempting gardening this year, and I hope that the show that Megan was doing with her wonderful garden to table type of cooking, that it will inspire all of us to get outside and begin the wonderful, I think wonderful, interaction with growing nice items, especially if there are things that you really like. planting, to me, food stuffs. Now, I know some people love the flower planting, and I'm okay with flowers, but it's not so thrilling to me. But I do get a kick out of planting something that is edible, and I'm excited when I see it grow to the point that I can harvest it and as well actually eat it or place it in some type of recipe. That's exciting. So, folks, I think I cannot swear to it, and we would have to double check the almanac. I live in central U.S. of A, and we have just had what I believe to be our last frost. I was fortunate enough to grab a few plants of broccoli and a few plants of cauliflower, and those are plants that generally you plant right before that last frost. I put those in the ground. Hopefully, they'll do well. So for any of you who are interested in planting season, you are now at that time period where I think we can avoid, if you're planting outdoors, I think we are about to be able to avoid frost. I can't swear to it because the temperature in this region can sometimes fluctuate greatly. And if that happens, you have to run outside and cover your plants to try to keep them from getting frost on them, especially if they're not hardy or winter plants. Anyway, as I'm getting along, is this turning into a gardening class? Because I found that cabbage actually can withstand cold temperatures. And cabbage is one of my favorite items to plant. It seems to grow well. I'm attempting to put down turnip greens this year, but last year my turnip greens did not do well. So I don't know if that's because I didn't plant them at the right time or if I didn't harvest them properly. But we're going to try that again. And this time I think I'm going to plant them from the actual turnip. But I'll let you know how that goes. I'm excited to see. Guys, as you can see, I'm so totally distracted. But all I'm getting at is if you love gardening and if you enjoyed the show, the portions when she went out to get things from her garden, I encourage each of you to drop some things in the ground. And in some areas, you'll be surprised at the fact that you can get a bounty back, even if you grow in a small pot. So let's have some fun with that. And if you have some items growing, especially some food items, feel free to share with us in the chat what you have planted. And if you have any great tips, depending on your area, let us know what those tips are. I would love to see those things shared in the chat. So guys, time to plant and sneeze and run from spiders. Okay? All of that is going to be happening. Now, here's the thing I wanted to note also in her time to plant. Boys and girls, I know if you've been paying attention to things happening in and around Harry and Meghan or the Sussex family, we are very much aware that there is always a continuous, constant drumbeat of the media, magazine journalists, or writers in general, to see if they can find something exciting to write about. If they can perhaps create a story in and around Harry and Meghan that will generate a lot of buzz or income for their magazine / paper. It is truly a sad thing that unfortunately we live in this place, we live in this space and time that conflict, drama, anger, outrage appears to be the media machine for making money. It's amazing to me. It's kind of a concept that I always ask about. I used to make jokes and I ask people because I love science fiction so much. Oh, by the way, I digress. If you guys haven't seen this miniseries called Silo, Silo, I tell you, you might want to check it out. As far as science fiction, it's pretty interesting what's happening in this space. But anyway, if you get a chance, check it out. Silo. I believe I saw it on Amazon Prime, I think. Okay? But look it up. But anyway, outside of science fiction, I've always wondered why is it that our television or airwaves, why are they not filled with stories about utopia? Like well built cities, beautiful people traveling all over the world, enjoying life. Isn't it interesting that for whatever reason, our minds, our movies, our television shows, our radio, our magazines, they're just filled to the brim with anything that makes you angry, depressed, sad, and hopeless. I mean, our televisions are filled with stories about pain and agony, desperation. And in general, it's like filling up a cup where we should all pretty much be filled to the brim with all of these down topics. And I keep wondering to myself, when is someone going to start putting out more things that could simply be life positive, right? And I think Megan is getting ready to trip into that space with her show and things like As Ever. It's like the opportunity to spend time with your friends, cook some good food, look for some beautiful flowers, put together nice gifts. It's just, hey, I hope this makes you feel better. Not that the world doesn't exist, but simply, can we look at something else? And this is the interesting thing about the movement that she is making. You have to ask yourself, why is this so hard for the rest of the world to accept? You know, you hear people actually complaining about the fact that she's trying to do something nice and beautiful. Think about that. I mean, it's truly a sad place where we are that we seem to take our marching orders from people that want you to be constantly miserable. Right? And it's truly a sad, sad state of affairs. So here's where we're going with this. I think that many of us can stop, even though the world is spinning and there's a lot of things happening and things are bizarre, that within our own moments, within our own home, and within our day, the assigned time of the day that you have to yourself, that you can actually try to do something fun and positive. Right? And that's something that I think we need to continue to carry on as Harry and Meghan are trying to push that as an example. Right? We have enough bad news. You don't need to go looking for that. We really don't. But a nice recipe for pasta, now that's something to look forward to. But I wanted to make a note here that over the past week or so, here's what's been thrown out in the wonderful media space. The commentary of searching for other celebrities or people who would be in the public eye and trying to find people who will have some sort of negative comment or complaint about what Meghan is doing. So, of course, the number one person to seek out is Gwyneth Paltrow. And Gwyneth Paltrow, she's a very interesting actress. I love a lot of the things that she does. Some of the movies that she does have done in the past have been quite intriguing. But Gwyneth Paltrow, for those of you who may be a little bit unfamiliar, she is an actress that also moved into the space of, I would call it a product sales. And she has a product, it's called Goop, Goop. So it's interesting, to think about the fact that when she started that product line, the news media first went out and about with the, oh my gosh, what is it? Oh my goodness, what's it going to do? Oh, who wants it? Why would anybody want that? There was a little bit of buzz around what she was working with. And I believe that the primary purpose of that product is cleaning, like beauty cleaning. I think it's like a cleanser for your face. But she did get a little bit of, I don't know, I would call it derision as her product was being launched. But anyway, she continued on and she's been very much, well, I would say somewhat profitable with it. So, of course, Gwyneth Paltrow, because she often does also homemaking type of Instagram posts and things like that, immediately they pit a question to Gwyneth Paltrow in the media space to try and get some sort of response from Gwyneth Paltrow as if Meghan is cutting into her territory, right? So Gwyneth Paltrow, I suppose, was supposed to respond with, I'm better than her, my stuff is nicer than hers, I have greater things. However, Gwyneth Paltrow did the opposite because I think she's been around the barn a couple of times. And so I noted that she made a quote, something like, and I put it in this little note, she said, I was raised to see other women as friends, not foes. Now, incidentally, the panel on The View also had to note her commentary because once again, these little snippets are thrown out to The View so that there can be some type of conflict in response, right? That's the only reason that a note would be passed to the table at The View to ask, what do you think about this? Because in order to keep the show, I suppose, relevant or exciting, then we have to throw out reasons for conflict. Am I right? So Gwyneth Paltrow said that, I think there's always more than enough to go around. Everyone deserves an attempt at everything that they want to try, right? And I think that is a beautiful way for Gwyneth Paltrow to say, basically, if I were interpreting this, it would be, why are you asking me to comment on what someone else is doing? Right? Because it's a valid question. Why do you think you need to have a negative comment about the work that someone else is trying to put forward? And the UK media and the UK personnel and the royal family, they set in motion nothing but a machine to constantly pick at Harry and Meghan. I mean, think about it. They can't even go into, if you would call it exile. They can't even have peace in exile because the royal family and the UK personalities see them as a constant battle against them. And these two people are just doing the normal things that they've always done. But they constantly have to have this battle going and creating these divisions simply because they want everyone to see them as not successful and less than. Now, I mean, imagine how you have to double over backwards to see two people who've been successful most of their lives, but once they meet you and they're dealing with you, all of a sudden they become unsuccessful. Right? But that is the UK media stance. That's what they're trying to promote. And it is because, in my opinion, and that's just what I have, my opinion, it is because the royal family or parts of it or the influential pieces of it keep insisting that this pressure is maintained, right? So that they can try and appear to be doing things that are worthwhile or interesting. And I'm sure they're beginning to understand that no matter what they do, no matter where they go, and no matter who they trot out, the common people at this point in time are just less interested, right? Young people these days are just simply less interested in the pomp and circumstance and the nonsense of their lifestyle. They have nothing to offer. They have very little to say that is of any value. They don't really add anything to other people's lives. You know, they come out, they shake hands, and they give some trinkets, right? But the people rarely have a significant change in their lives. Or if they do, it's still because of the work they're doing themselves. Am I right? And that is just the circumstances under which we are living. So let me take a hot minute, but that's the Gwyneth Paltrow story. So let me take a hot minute. Let's see who is here in the chat, if anybody is here. Okay, we have Lorna Williams. Thank you so much. All for Success lets us know that in each region, the U.S. and Canada, have planting zone numbers. That's correct. And that you can download planting guides for your zone that will tell you when to start your indoor seeds. Oh yeah, they love to do that. And they'll let you know when you start to see the stems flourish. And then you can take those things and then transplant them in your outdoor garden. Okay, and move to that next season. You are absolutely correct. And so everyone who's interested, make sure you take a look at that. King for Concepts, good morning. Hey, squatties. Okay, well, good morning to you. And welcome to All for Success. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. So let's see what you got. The planting guide will tell you, Lorna Williams also is letting us know, when to transplant plants to the outside and when to start fall planting season and when is the last date in your area. Yes, ma'am, you are absolutely right. So it sounds like you are going to have a lovely garden for all of us to enjoy. Am I right? I'm excited to see it. You've got to get things in the ground because that's going to be fun because we're all going to be doing food to table. Welcome, Joyce Anderson. My vegetables bring all the rabbits to the yard. And I'm sure they appreciate that 100%. 100%. Joyce Anderson and poor Lorna Williams, you're feeding the animals. She has the same problem with birds eating. Oh, you got your pea shoots. Oh, yeah, I tried peas too. I didn't get mine to grow, but I got the sprouts, and that was it. But you're right. The little ones, the rabbits, the birds. If you're really really outdoors without any netting or anything like that, you're indeed going to be fighting against all of the flora and fauna and farm animals. They're going to eat your stuff up. My daughter tried to grow, I believe it was raspberries or blackberries, one or the other. And I am not, she said, "Oh, how come I only see one or two berries?" I am really thinking that the birds got a hold of most of them. I could be wrong, but that's what it looked like to me. But I tell you, I think about, I reminisce again. I'm a minute older than some of you, and I reminisce about my mom and my grandmother, and at the time, my stepdad. They could plant a pretty large area. We had like fields next to our house when I was growing up. Not small ones, but, open spaces. And it just seemed that they could harvest, that their harvest was very bountiful. And I think about what I generally can get out of it. I'm really lacking based on what they used to pull up out of the ground. And I mean, they grew everything. So as a kid growing up, it looked simple in a way, but as I try it myself, I see that this is a little bit more complicated than you think. It's a little bit more to it. So I was just going to continue with, if I spelled this correctly, I'm not sure, is that their media, their entire modus of operating is to divide and conquer. And this is the concept that I want everyone to keep their eyes open for. And I mean, we're all aware of it, but the way that they try to inject it in their insidious manner. Usually they'll go run over to someone like Meghan McCain, or I call it some of the other personalities that they feel they can be absolutely sure will say something negative. Kinsey, the what's her name, Kinsey, who has her little show where the only reason she comes out to say anything or do anything is to say something negative about Harry and Meghan. Other than that, she has no actual information or reporting. Her only source of income is, I'm going to say something bad about Harry or Meghan. I'm going to report on what someone is trying to do to Harry and Meghan. Kinsey Schofield really has no other purpose. And you would think by now that she would try to leverage even that foolishness into some other type of business, right? Like, wouldn't you maybe be more interested in listening to her if she was talking about, I don't know, make up something like high fashion that resembles royal outfits? Maybe she could do something like that. Compare beautiful royal gowns to what is seen in a high fashion type of way. She could do an entire special like that. But that is too positive for her. That's too positive. That doesn't generate the millions and millions of dollars that they have been promised by being totally negative. We can also, you can throw that same blanket on, of course, the Markle family. Here is a family that had the opportunity to simply be the family of the royals, which by itself would have brought a little bit of light to who they are, what they do, right? They themselves could have been doing gardening tips. They themselves could have written books about cooking and recipes perhaps that they had shared with the Duchess. Imagine, when my Duchess was 10 years old, I made her this. Or, I took my baby when she was this much old to this little restaurant. It's one of my favorites. They could have operated in a positive space and still done some type of delivery, right, of interest that may have afforded them an income. But instead they chose, well, let's see if we can we can be paid. Here's someone that's offering us a couple $1,000 on saying the most negative things we can say about Meghan Markle. And then here in the United States, whatever you got taxed on it at 20 some percent. So it wasn't worth what you got. You probably spent it up. You bought a car. That was it. Bam, gone. You know? So it's not, was it worth it to you? And then every now and then you pop out and hop over to Australia or some other obscure place that will pay you a couple of dollars to trot out some negative foolishness. And and maybe you get a nickel or a dime, and now you're looking for places to hide because everywhere you go now, people look at you and think, oh, you know what? You're just a crazy idiot. And now you're embarrassed. But you did it to yourself. So when it comes to that type of family type mentality, it's like I don't know what in the world you were thinking or what was going on. But often people are just that way. People in families are just as deceitful as someone that you meet that's a stranger. And the divide and conquer mode of operation is probably something that was inflicted upon them. You know, oh my gosh, can you imagine saying to her family members, oh, Meghan Markle doesn't want to have anything to do with you. She would really like to get away from all of you, right? That's probably what was said to them or spun to them, right? And so now you're thinking you got to reach and run and clash onto someone because who knows what you were told, instead of understanding, okay, I should kind of back up here and make sense with this. So Gwyneth Paltrow was also featured in, I think it was, I'm going to say maybe New York, I'm not sure if it was New York Times or Vanity, one of those, probably Vanity. And so the possibility of developing a friendship with the Sussexes isn't totally off the table, is what she was actually remarking on, because it's not like she and Meghan were tight buddies in the past. You know, Gwyneth Paltrow would have been an actress at in a different place from, say, Meghan Markle, right? There's a difference between movie actors and people who are on weekly shows. That's a whole different group of people. And so she added that maybe she'd try to get through their security detail and bring them a pie. And I have a feeling that if she actually offered to do that, Duchess Meghan would be absolutely floored. At least that would be my opinion, right? Because again, Gwyneth Paltrow seems to be a very legitimate and decent person in her response. And it appears to be genuine. Now, of course, just FYI, even though she was fairly, neutral about how she feels about the show going on and thinks, okay, great, it's a great idea, it's not going to harm me. You better believe that the UK tabloid press and media attempted to twist the interaction, right? And they've been trying to do that for several months. They've attributed attitudes to Gwyneth Paltrow that she has not even ever expressed, right? They're the ones that were writing stories about the possibility that Gwyneth Paltrow would be angry at Meghan using this or that or doing something similar. They created these stories. These stories were not authored by Gwyneth Paltrow. And as a matter of fact, no one had ever asked. But their intention was to put out in the space before anyone ever talked to Gwyneth Paltrow, to quickly put out in the space that there was going to be a lot of friction. Right? Absolutely divide and conquer strategies. And the thing about these type of strategies and these type of attacks is that we should all now be so far aware of this. We should be so aware of these tactics that none of these tactics should work. But I'm always amazed, and everyone tells me that people just aren't as bright as you think they are. I'm often reminded that people in general, young people, older people, the world in general, just the average person, the average workaday individual, that people really are not as intelligent, discerning as you would hope them to be. Because the majority of people, and you'll hear them say these things, they'll just repeat what they heard, right? Again, swinging back to The View, the commentary on The View. I don't know, Joy Behar made this comment after reading the article about Gwyneth Paltrow. I don't know, something about Meghan just triggers people. Okay, is that Meghan's fault? So Meghan is the problem? Because Meghan just triggers people? What is that? Right? Perhaps you are jealous and hateful. How about making that sentence the correct sentence? Rather than Meghan making her the subject and that she triggers you. Of course, in any world and at any time, it is very true that we are not all going to get along with everyone. I have favorite movie stars and favorite actors, for example. I love the work that Denzel Washington does. But I don't see that. I don't look at Denzel Washington and think, he and I would be great, great friends. We probably wouldn't. Right? I can look at people like Angela Bassett and I would say, oh, she's a phenomenal actress. Oh, I really like her work. But I don't know if she and I would get along like buds. Right? The friends that I've had since kindergarten. I don't know if she and I would click like that. And so I'm just kind of over the top, over the edge of the type of things people are trying to put out to assign an attitude to someone like Gwyneth Paltrow as if she is automatically an enemy of Meghan Markle. Right? Now, the second person that also came into the limelight last week as well is Martha Stewart, folks. Now, here's why. Now, this was exciting. Now, I want you to know that there's another story being told by the UK tabloid press. And the story being told is that Martha Stewart had the exact same recipe and she wanted to demonstrate that she actually had the recipe and Meghan stole it. All right. But here's the beautiful thing that happened. Martha Stewart did a video clip of, as she stated, hey, this recipe is becoming all the rage. It's going around. So I'm going to try to put this recipe together. And it was the same recipe of the pasta made by Meghan Markle during her show. So to us who are rational, that seems like a nod from Martha Stewart that, you know what, this is a neat recipe. I'm going to try it. Let's see how it comes out and give my opinion, my take on it. And she did. She made the pasta. She seemed to like it. She talked about it. Thumbs up, everybody. That's Martha Stewart. Now, here's the beauty of that. Martha Stewart is an absolute mogul in the business of household products, home improvement, decorating, fashion, all things that are about homemaking. Martha Stewart's, the queen bee of this stuff. Am I right? But that's the way that they would like to frame it on the UK side, that, Martha Stewart's in a battle against Meghan Markle. So here, I hope this interview was done, I'm not sure how long ago, but let's get a little take of how she actually thinks about the work that Meghan Markle is doing. Let's see if I can find a little clip.
That she wants to become a brand like Martha Stewart. I want to be like Martha, she said.
I just read that today.
Well, you and I are reading the same sources.
Well, I'm flattered.
Give her the advice if she wants to do this.
I'm flattered and produce good products with that work and will help the homemaker have a nicer life. And that's what it's all about.
I'm ready to toast this in a big that she wants to become a brand like Martha Stewart. I want to be like Martha, she said.
I just read that today.
Well, you and I are reading the same sources.
Well, I'm flattered.
Give her the advice if she wants to do this.
I'm flattered and produce good products with that work and will help the homemaker have a nicer life. And that's what it's all about.
I'm ready to toast this in a big that she.
So, hey, there you have it. It appears that she is indeed flattered by the fact that Duchess Meghan would like to be like Martha Stewart. But that's not the story that they're telling on the UK tabloid media, and they are looking quite foolish, having tried to pitch the anger fest that actually may not exist. So this is what we're all having to keep our eyes open for and pass the word. Let people know if you're mistaken about what you believe about this person. And the moment that someone has a negative comment about these two, the wonderful family here in the Sussex world, the moment that someone has a negative commentary, I always ask them, where did you hear that? And most of the time, they actually don't know. It's just something that they breezed by, often in a news article. Right? So guys, I want to thank you guys for being here. I told you I wasn't going to keep you too long. So I just wanted to re-mention that soon we're going to be getting that new podcast by Lemonada Media. I'm just going to keep reminding you of that because I love podcasts. I absolutely do. I adore the podcast world. And she's getting ready to start pitching that again. We, of course, are going to have to keep our eyes and ears open by all the other little things that she is doing because she is totally unfazed by the critics now, right? As they say, things that make your life harder generally can make you stronger. So what they have done is they have built a super being, right? All of the negative things that they have done to her, they've somewhat built a super being. Now, just like everyone in the world, right? And I want to make sure that I say this even as a squatty parent of adult children, all of that. Often, just like in our world of the political world, our political realm, you will often see people do and say things and you think often, oh my, I wish they hadn't said that, or I wish they hadn't done that. It would have been better for them if they had not done that particular thing. And that is probably true also of the Duke and the Duchess. Right? They'll have to comb through those type of activities and to improve as they go along. But I want you to know that from my point of view, they are still trying to do positive things with their lives. And that is important to me. And I want to encourage all of you to do the same. Enjoy the positive things in your life as much as you can. Because the harshness of real life, it's not going anywhere. So you know you do not have to always focus on it. Tough times are a guarantee. So you can sometimes focus on making a pasta dish instead. So keep that in mind, okay? Now, guys, as I always try to wrap it up, I try to leave you with some type of thought process. And yes, I base them usually in some type of scriptural reference. And no, this is not a recruitment to any type of bizarre cult behavior. Okay? I'm not going to ask you to jump off of a cliff. You're not going to be asked to inject yourselves with anything, but it's just something to think about. And you're going to say, what in the world is going on? But here's the deal. Now let's listen. And remember, keep your eyes open for your planting season. So, as I was talking about divide and conquer, it reminded me of a scene talked about early in the Bible, and that was the building of the Tower of Babel. Are you all familiar with that? I hope you are. If you're Bible folks, the Tower of Babel is interesting that they were building that, or all of mankind, it would seem, had come together and they were going to build this tower in order to avoid any type of worldwide devastation in the future, right? Because they had experienced the devastation of mankind, correct? And so after that, they said, oh, okay, well, we're going to construct a facility so we won't have that experience again. So here's what happens, and I'll just read a little bit here. It says, now the whole world had one language and common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. Okay, you guys have to look at your maps and try to figure out where is Shinar and all that. I'm gonna let you do that. So there's a bit of description that I just dotted out, and it was about the type of bricks that they used and the type of mortar and the fact that they were building this facility. And it says, come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. Okay? Now, the origin of this tower, and there's more to read about the purpose, which is, of course, a lot more intriguing, because it would appear that mankind had decided, well, I'm going to go to heaven and challenge the heavenly host myself, kind of thing. And they were feeling like they needed to be in a battle posture because, well, previously, much of mankind had been destroyed by the flood. Anyway, this is another thing. That's the background story. So I think you all will have fun if you're interested in reading a lot of the background. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the people were building. And the Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. And he says, come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. So I would like for you to think for a moment there and point back to divide and conquer. Because the implication here is that since mankind was able to achieve what was achieved in that time period, that the only way to put a stop to the progress they were making was to create dissension and confusion among them. And this is a constant and continuous theme, even for all of us today. Right? And it is a continuous thread throughout our entire existence to keep us constantly in conflict. And by that conflict being a constant type of persistent mechanism, those are the elements that stifle the production of either an individual or mankind. So just keep that in mind. And I always thought that that was something interesting to read, or a different way to kind of put that thought in your mindset. and think about just life in general, right? So, guys, thank you all so much for sitting here listening to me go on with my banter and putting up with all of this crazy, crazy noise. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you all for being here. And I hope to do more and keep you apprised of how my planting goes. So give yourselves a round of applause. Remember, stay active, connect positively, and accept victory. So hang in there, everybody. We've got a lot more of this to go. Thank you so much.